You're listening to Ministerium Radio. I'm your host, Nick Coffey. I don't know about you, but I've been humming Danse Macabre in the shining hours, and fretting Beethoven's haunting and brutal melodies in those cold and lonely nights. Sometimes the barrier between this and other dimensions seems at its weakest during those hours, doesn't it, listener? Maybe you've seen me, pacing in the shadows at 2 a.m. when you wake, parched and disoriented, and stumble out of bed to quench your thirst. I know I've seen you during that time, listener. This is something you might find useful. I have a weather update today, listener. That's right. The big boys in the big room on top of the big stairs upstairs have sent down notice of an impending storm. Now do not panic. They wrote that in here 7 times, but I'll just say it once, because I think once is enough. The inbound storm is rated at a level 6 on the Gaussian Vermeer scale, and will likely wreak massive destruction in its path. Speaking of paths, we've got a contribution called The Body That Follows the Feet from one Glenn Espirano. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. It is indeed very nice. It happens to be that the other day I was walking, and without thinking, I walked right into a wall. I'm not talking brick and mortar. I mean a metaphorical wall. Maybe a metaphysical one. Maybe there was a wall here in another dimension that I walked right into. It's hard to tell. Whatever the case, I walked into it and stopped walking. When one encounters a barrier, the answer cannot be to keep on doing what you were doing when the barrier showed up. That would mean I would just keep walking right into that wall. Whatever it was, wherever it was, I needed to conquer this wall that had so rudely interrupted my walk. It had been quite a nice walk. I saw birds, I saw flowers, I saw random people. It was a good walk. But then, blammo. There was a wall in my way. It was a big surprise to me, to be honest. I had walked this path several times over and never encountered a wall before. A lady with a stroller passed me, and in doing so, walked right through the wall that had me stumped. She didn't even break stride to say good day. The nerve. This lady and her baby clearly weren't bothered at all by the wall. This was when I realized the wall was specific to me. The ghost wall was my ghost wall, and it was still there. I had a hard time seeing what was past it. I just had a vague idea comprised of my best guesses. When I thought about it too long, I thought there might be monsters in the shadows. My joggers start to cool off. That's how long I've been standing there. The friction between pavement and sole and sock and foot was winding down and dissipating into the air. My sweat dried up. There was a small breeze. It was nice. But the wall stood. I tried looking at it, but couldn't get my eyes to focus. Another woman walked by, this time with a small mutt, trailing behind her on a pink leash. I made an effort to give her a very cheery hello as she passed. I even waved. But she carried on as if I didn't exist. Which planted the idea in my mind. Maybe I didn't exist. Maybe that woman with her little dog didn't exist. Or the woman with the stroller. Or the path. Or even the wall. Maybe none of this existed. Maybe it was all a charade. Maybe I am the path, and these women with their strollers and dogs and visor caps are all me. Maybe it is all me, and I am all of it. Feeling powerful with this forced revelation, I try again. I try to walk down the path. Again, my feet fail to move. My legs stand immobile, and now, in spite of my mental and spiritual acrobatics, not only has the initial wall grown more solid, but a wall has cropped up behind me. Both ways, forward and back. At that point, I began getting frustrated. Mostly this was because I was hungry. I skipped breakfast so I could get brunch with the girls, and I really needed to get moving. I began willing my body to move, like Uma Thurman in that one movie without the killing. Step with your left foot. Step with your left foot. It didn't work. It did seem to begin a new stage of this whole to-do, though. You know how sand is like custard when it just gets the right mix of grit and water. When you begin to wriggle your feet on it, it bulges up around them and then slowly consumes them? Yeah, that began happening to my feet. It wasn't scary though. Somehow none of this was scary. Maybe I was still believing some of that new age non-existence prattle I drummed up. Soon enough, the ground was to my hips, then my neck. I kept expecting panic to overcome me, but the ground was very comfortable. I felt almost like how I imagine my friend's kid's gecko feels when he gets down into the sandy substrate of his tank, just below the heating lamp. It was cozy. Then, ever so slowly, my head sank below the ground, right as another lady strolled past with her iPhone blaring. She was wrecking her eardrums to some no doubt. The ground below the ground wasn't ground at all. This was when I decided I definitely did not exist. The ground below the ground was more like a continuum of particulate. Each wood chip, each pebble, each mote of dust rang the edges of the infinite. Somewhere, some rational part of my brain knew that the earth was finite. It was a fact. The earth could be measured. It could be accounted for. With enough time, a spreadsheet of each small grain could be typed up and printed out. Once it was done being printed, there would be no more trees left. Not even their roots. We would need all of it for paper. I saw myself floating in this infinite sea of warmth. Snaking through it were roots and snacks and aquifers and worms. The worms were working, and they were working hard. I would have liked to stay and watch, but my feet continued their downward path, though at this point I wasn't sure which way was up and which was down. I was floating, almost like a jellyfish in the sea, but with much less motion. My feet have continued, leading me to new and unexplored realms. In my floating, I happened upon a flip phone, which I used to type this letter. I don't think I need saving. I don't think I even need food. I'm not sure I exist, but it seems like I should tell someone, and this is the best I've got. Wow, that was quite a tale, Glenna. Quite a tale. I hope you have fun floating in the... Remember that messages should always be properly addressed, or they run the risk of being returned by the big boys in the big room on top of the big stairs upstairs. And no one wants that. Our next contribution is a very short telegram from Edward Polnuve of the distant lands of Toronto, entitled It Began. It began. It wasn't until the stop that the invading stop began with the etches stop. Escape code 1942 TS2. Stop. Don't let the gray stop. Abandon all hope. Stop. Well, wasn't that nice, listener? That Edward took the time to send that message to us. I wonder if we'll get another telegram anytime soon. And that's it for today, listener. Don't forget to feed your mind worm. Thank you for listening to another episode of Ministerium Radio. Remember to hit all the bells and subscribe and click all the buttons below this video to stay up to date on future videos. And that's about it. See you next time.